So like I was saying, the reason we have this presentation in the spring for our first and second year students is because, well, there's still opportunities out there, smaller opportunities usually that you can apply to. For the primary awards that we work with, those applications are due in the fall and early spring semester. So we want to get our first and second year students in early so we can start talking about what plans do you have for next year, for next summer, and how can we start identifying those awards and those programs, identify those deadlines, and what timelines do we need to abide by so you can go into the summer confident that when you return, we can start working with you and make sure that we nail all of these application cycles, which are usually concurrent. You'll find that the majority of these opportunities are due between like late September and mid-November. And so if we know about those well in advance, we can make sure that you're as prepared as possible for these application cycles. So if you haven't worked with the Office of National Fellowships before, there's a lot that we do, but essentially if I can dumb it down is we are the liaison between you and these different scholarships, awards, fellowships, these opportunities that can really help enhance your education here at Florida State and help you find the experiential learning opportunities. So what I mean by that is like research, international study, foreign language study, again, whatever it is that's relevant to your major to help you develop the skills, the knowledge that you need to go on to graduate school, your professional career, and prepare yourself for what comes after Florida State. So when we are in the throes of these application cycles, what our meetings look like is we're sitting down with you to review these personal statements, these statements of purpose, all the written materials that you need to provide for these applications. And this writing process is going to be different than what you were taught to do in high school, or at least what I was taught to do in high school. Please don't, just abide by the 5 paragraph format. That was archaic then, it's archaic now. And for a lot of these applications, you simply don't have the space. These essays can range from like a 300-word statement of purpose, where you have to be, brevity is key, you have to be effective, and you have to be detailed. And then other applications, especially as you move on into your junior and senior year, can become incredibly dense, anywhere from one page to 5 pages for the NSF GRFP, and so on and so forth. So these applications, they really force you to sit down, reflect on your studies, who you are, and what goals do you have, and why do you have them. And so this writing process is really relevant when you're applying to graduate school or med school or law school in a few years. These applications, they all ask you different iterations of the same questions. And so that is, who are you? Why do you want this? Where are you going with it? So if you can do it for these fellowships, you can do it for all of these other applications. So hopefully we're learning or helping teach you how to ride this bicycle. And that's something that you'll continue on over the next 3 to 4 years. These applications also force you to develop your professional and your academic network, both here on campus or out in the community, back in your hometown. Again, it's relevant to whatever you want to do, but these applications will ask you to have anywhere from 1 to 3 or 5 to 8, in extreme cases, letters of recommendation. And so you want to make sure that you have those academics, your professors here on campus that can speak to your ability in the research lab, your ability in the classroom, your professionalism, your grit. But then you also want those professional recommendations. So how do you operate in these spaces as well? And different applications may ask you for different types of letters, some of them related to leadership, some of them related to service. So again, this is why it's so important that we look at these opportunities early so we can help you identify who are the professionals that can best speak to your abilities, and how can you start building these relationships now. Starts with going to office hours, but anyways, I digress. And then discovering future fellowship opportunities. Yes, there are awards that are geared towards, and we'll talk about a few of them today for first and second year students, but then you'll find awards that are simply open to undergraduate students. And so the earlier you know about them, obviously the earlier that we can apply to them. And then you'll find that these awards, they do tend to snowball. And I've been in this office for 10 years now. Bonnie's been here for 3. It feels like, I don't know, yeah. And Sam's been with us for a little over a year. And so it's like, we've seen how these awards have impacted students and how they, like I said, snowball into other opportunities, both on campus, but yes, other fellowships as well. But just to briefly touch on, we're not going to go into too much detail when it comes to like these writing processes. But when we think of personal statements, we want to make sure that this is not just a regurgitation of your resume, because, well, some of these applications do ask you to submit a resume, so I don't want to read it twice, and I know reviewers don't want to either. But this is, in some applications, this is really the only essay where they get to see you beyond your academic achievements. So who are you? Where do you come from? Like, what are you interested in? You know, like, tell us an anecdote or a story or a narrative that really showcases the unique aspects of yourself that you're bringing to this opportunity. And this is also your opportunity to really emphasize that I'm not just qualified for this experience that I'm applying to, but I'm the person that you want for this opportunity. And, you know, that can be really difficult to do, but you want to find that alignment between what you're currently doing and involved in on campus, how this opportunity is going to help you get to that next step and where you want to be, and then how you're going to capitalize on that moving forward. And so, yeah, and this is something, again, that we unpack in our one-on-one meetings with you. You know, before we even jump into this writing process, like, what is it about this experience that's going to help you grow and develop better than the next opportunity? Because reviewers to these applications, like I think we can assume that everyone, for the most part, that's applying to this has like the qualifications that you need for it. They're academically qualified, they're ready for it, they can do and capitalize on this experience. But why is this the right time for you to do this? And that's where you can tie in, like I mentioned earlier, your community involvement here at Florida State, your clubs and organizations or any leadership positions. You know, so what is it about this experience? Like, what skills are you going to gain from it? What knowledge are you going to gain from it? You know, how is this going to prepare you for what comes next? And then, yeah, we already kind of mentioned academic and career trajectory. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I stood up here and told you, like, as a first or second year student, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. You know, oftentimes these fellowships, the purpose, the reason they exist is to help you figure that out by getting you into the field, meeting the professionals that are doing this work and learning more about the organizations. So sometimes my students are a little trepid, you know, in those essays when it's like, well, tell me what you want to do with the future. Like, students will be like, well, I don't know what I want to do in the, and it's okay to not know, but you want to give them some idea of that direction. Or if you are at this fork in the road, like, what does that fork look like? Like, what options are you considering? And how would this opportunity help you clarify, should I turn left or should I turn right? So anyways, that's just kind of a little bit about ONF and how we help you, at least through this application process. And so we're just going to touch on a few awards. And so I'll always recommend to students, like, go to our website, onf.fsu.edu. And that is where you're going to be able to search by your year of study, your major, you know, and find opportunities that align with your interests. So this is just going to be a drop in the bucket of what we work with, but I do think some really relevant awards that can be really malleable to your interests. So therefore, I think it's really helpful for first year students. Has anybody heard of like Fulbright before? Okay, yeah, it's one of like a very few number of fellowships that if students don't even know really what a fellowship is, you've heard of Fulbright. I think the easiest way to define a fellowship is that it's a scholarship with a learning outcome. So usually that comes with the funding that you need to do whatever it is that you want to do. But by the end of that fellowship experience, you've learned, you've created, or you studied something really critical to your goals and your aspirations. Fulbright traditionally is like an 8 to 10 month fellowship. After you graduate, you need your bachelor's degree to even qualify for it. But this program exists, this US UK Summer Institutes. They exist for first and second year students. They exist to be formative experiences for you, to travel to a new country, to engage with a new culture. And then the next slide, we'll get into some more of the thematic elements for these different institutes, but it's a small cohort, usually around like 12 to 15 students per program, and all from different academic majors, but all students who have these same interests and they're wanting to learn and engage with different people, different cultures, and learn from each other. So this program, it is fully funded. It takes place over the summer. They'll take care of you for the entire duration of your experience. And this kind of shows you, this was 2025's institute. So for the students that I worked with this year, this was I guess the list of options that they had. And the cool thing about this fellowship, it does change every year. There's a few institutes that do stay pretty consistent, like this University of Bristol program, for as long as I've worked with this scholarship has been around. And same with I believe King's College has been around for a few years as well. This Lancaster program, I know it just says film. All the other ones have very detailed, and it's just film. But this is a new program, incredibly nuanced, that unpacks, for our students who might be in the College of Film here. It unpacks not just the filmmaking process, but all the behind the scenes work. And then for any of these programs, you don't need to be majoring in history. You don't need to be majoring in international affairs to qualify for this. When you go to these different sites, you'll look at the university, like what is the curriculum for this program? And it's going to include site visits, guest speakers, so usually projects for the cohort to accomplish together. But then you're also going to be at pretty prestigious universities where you can, in your downtime, expand beyond just simply what the program offers and get to engage with the faculty and students there as well. And that's something that they are interested in learning about in the application. It's not just why are you interested in this curriculum and how does it align with your studies, but what else do you want to do while you're here? Now, just to kind of get like the eligibility for these fellowships we're going to talk about just very wide, they widely vary. This is one of the few that'll have a GPA requirements. It's a 3.6, which actually bumped down from it used to be a 3.7. And they like to see students that have had minimal international experience. If you have traveled abroad before, like that's not a deal breaker, like talk to us about that. But this opportunity likes to be that point of access for students who have limited engagement with other cultures and in Europe specifically. And then again, we can break down all of this in a one-on-one meeting, go over the essays, the items that you need. Usually the challenging one for this one, because it is for first and second year students, are the reference letters that you need. You need two. And especially for first year students, like these are still relationships that you're building. But back to my original point at the beginning of this presentation, we want you to be aware of this now so you can start building those relationships and be ready for this application by next February when the application, it opens up at the end of the fall and then it's due in early February with interviews in March. So again, really cool program to get you abroad and, explore higher education in another country. Any questions about the US, UK before we move on? Cool. We'll also have time for questions at the end. Another catch-all fellowship for a lot of students, catch-all meaning it's for students from all different academic majors, is the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship. This is it's only for undergraduate students, so you have to complete it before you graduate. But it's for students that receive federal Pell Grants to study abroad. So this could be for an internship abroad. It could be for a traditional study program. It could also be for research abroad, but traditionally it's up to $5,000 for you to apply towards a program of your choosing. And that could be through Florida State University. We have really great programs through international programs, through FSU Global Exchanges that you can choose from. But then we also help students look into programs beyond Florida State, like AIFS, Arcadia Abroad for STEM students, and many others. And that's the nice thing. So for example, one of the major differences between this program and Gilman is the prior is a set curriculum. You apply to it and then you engage in this program that's already prescribed, which for ease is pretty nice. Whereas for Gilman, it's completely up to you. And so oftentimes when I'm working with students, the application for Gilman is not the challenge. It is simply finding the right program and finding the right opportunity for me. But then we're also working not just with Gilman deadlines, which the nice thing with Gilman is there's both a fall and spring deadline, but we're also working with deadlines for these programs through international programs or through the Center for Global Engagement. And so we have to abide by multiples, what I'm saying. So again, just reiterating why it's so important for us to start early. But like I said, traditionally $5,000. If you're studying, we'll have this list of languages a few slides later. If you're studying a critical need language during your program, you can qualify for up to $8,000 of funding. $1,000 additional, so a total of 6. If you're doing research abroad in STEM fields, or if you're the dependent of an active duty military member, there is the Gilman McCain Scholarship, which is exactly the same as the standard Gilman Scholarship. But it doesn't have the Pell specific aspect. You just need to demonstrate you have financial need. And something that we always like to promote within our office, we don't always have the specific data to show like we do for Gilman, but working with advisors, sitting down with someone to read your essays and go over your materials is going to significantly impact the competitiveness of your essays and application at the next level. So this is data that I've tracked since I've been with ONF. And so you can see the difference between students that apply solo, 21%, which is still not bad acceptance rate, versus 58% for students that work with us for a nationally competitive award. Again, just to briefly outline the eligibility, that's something that, yeah, it does need to at least be 1 week, but the duration of the program for Gilman can be completely up to you. It could be for a summer, it could be a fall or spring, or it could be for a full academic year abroad, again, just dependent on what you find. The application is really straightforward for the most part. It is telling us about who you are, it's telling us about where you're studying, what program you're participating in, and why. And then you have some shorter essays that ask you to unpack the ambassadorial role that you assume as a American participating in this international program. And then Gilman does have a follow-on project for you to do after your experience, which for many students can look like a presentation to clubs and organizations that you're a part of here on campus. Can be community projects, but they have plenty of examples of what that could be on their website. But for example, if you study abroad, say, next summer, it would be the fall after when you would complete this project. And so we also work with you on helping to coordinate and organize that if you need it, but also helping you understand like what is a feasible project. The nice thing about Gilman, and I believe this is the last item on the slides, is I already mentioned there's a fall and a spring deadline, but those deadlines say this upcoming October 9th, when this comes around again, that is for any program that begins either spring 2020, well, actually just in 2026. So you can apply in the fall and hopefully secure funding for a program that may not even begin for 6 or 8 or 10 months. And so the reason that they do that is because they know for students applying to this particular scholarship, financial need is a big concern. And this is an award that you can stack with other funding. So they want to make sure like, hey, if I can receive this, if I apply for this October 9th deadline, usually you find out by December whether or not you got the funding, and then we can continue to apply to other scholarships and funding for you to make that experience feasible. Cool. Critical language scholarship. For a lot of first and second year students, I know students may be coming in with either languages that they studied in high school that they're wanting to capitalize on, or they're wanting to branch out from those languages that they studied, or students are just wanting to start. And so wherever you're at in that process, like we can find an opportunity for you. But we work with a few different awards, like Gilman, like I mentioned, they have their language caveat, the Critical Language Scholarship, the Boren Scholarship. They are all operated by the same parent organization, IIE. It's the Institute for International Education. And their entire goal is just to help American college students access different parts of the world, different cultures, different languages to continue to grow as professionals and as students. Now, with CLS, you're eligible as a first-year student all the way up until your senior year. This is also open to graduate students at both the master's and doctoral level. And this is one of the few fellowships that you can receive multiple times as long as you can make a case for this is why and how I need to continue growing in my language proficiency. You'll notice that on the website, as you scroll through it, if you're interested in CLS, that they really try not to promote it as, kind of a stereotypical study abroad experience, just kind of like a cutesy fun experience. Like it is fun because they're paying for you to be abroad for, 10 weeks over the summer, engaged with a new culture, but they really do not shy away from emphasizing the rigor of this. And so this is a program for students that want to make rapid gains in their language proficiency. So yes, you are taking, a full course load of language classes over the summer. You also 9 times out of 10 are going to be with a host family. So you're going to get the colloquial use of the language. And you're also going to be paired with a conversation partner throughout the duration of your experience. So you're getting the language in as many possible ways as they can provide it over the summer. And so this, sometimes I'll get students that apply during their senior year because they're like, hey, I'm starting grad school next semester and I need to be better at this. Or I'm just working with first year students that want to get that jump start. So this is the list of languages that are available, the ones that require no prior study or the ones that require 1 year. So for students, for example, say like next fall, I'm taking Arabic 1. You would still be eligible to apply for this because by the time you would go on this experience, which would be summer 2026, you would have that 1 year of proficiency. And then the only one that requires 2 years is Japanese. The reason these languages have been identified is because the US Department of State identified these languages as the ones that are most understudied in the United States, or the languages that often have the least amount of resources devoted to them at the university level. The Boren Scholarship, which is not in this presentation, but we can talk more about that, has a much larger list of the languages, at least 50 that are available. And so the difference is the Critical Language Scholarship is open to students from all different academic majors. They just want to know, why is this language critical to your academic study and future career? Boren has that same interest, but it is for future careers like in the federal government. So maybe with the Department of State, with the Department of Defense, or the Department of Homeland Security. So they have a slightly different focus, if that makes sense, but again, it all centers around, why do you need this language to continue to become the professional that you envision yourself being? Questions about CLS or language study? Yeah, we can kind of breeze through this. Essentially, you'll find that the eligibility for a lot of these is more or less the same. A lot of them do require citizenship, but if you are a student who does not have citizenship, like, you can still work with us, Bonnie and I, and Sam. We have a long list from our professional organization of fellowships that are available to college students that don't require citizenship, that we'd be happy to share with you if you ask. But yeah, cool. Now, any STEM students? All right, sick. So STEM students are more than welcome to apply to any of the previous awards that I mentioned. But we do also work with more STEM heavy opportunities. And I think the low hanging fruit when it comes to those fellowships is the National Science Foundation Research Experience for Undergraduates. The only time I'm going to say that's NSFRU. And these are full funded experiences over the summer throughout the United States. There's a couple international ones, but primarily within the United States, for you to continue to develop the research chops that you need to maybe do an honors thesis as an undergraduate, to prepare yourself for graduate school or PhD programs, or for some students, they're involved, say, in like physics or chemistry research, but the specific thing that they want to study or access, just that lab is not here at Florida State. So you can develop skills and knowledge here that's relevant to your field, but then an RAU can give you access to professionals and labs like outside of what Florida State can provide, but it also expands your academic network and it helps you meet other faculty in your field. And for some students, especially students in their second and third year that apply to these, students can be crafty, I guess, in that I'm applying to REUs relevant to my field, yes, but I'm also applying to REUs at universities that I'm considering for graduate school in 1 or 2 or 3 years. And so these can be really excellent ways to get on campus, meet the faculty, meet current graduate students, and understand, like, do I vibe with this institution, with this lab culture in the city, in the state? And so these can be really, really, really informative programs. And REUs also exist at Florida State. I have some students, that are like, okay, there's classes that I need to take and I have to be here over the summer. You can still apply to these, and you can still, plenty of them exist at the Mag Lab, but also across other departments. So if you're also someone who has to stay at FSU for the summer, you can still get paid to do that. Fields of study, as you can see, is vast. And then the REUs did update their website this past year, and I do think it's really easy to navigate, to where you can, of course, obviously, you can input your field of study, but you can also input like the region or the state that you would like to study in, if you have that preference. Now, for example, if you click on like biological sciences, you're probably gonna get 150 or more different RU placements. And so it's a lot to parse through, but that's also really exciting. There's a lot of options out there. Whereas if you, okay, yeah, polar programs, I mean, that's dope, but you're probably gonna have like 5 to 10, you know, so it does vary greatly. Now, this one's it's a couple years old, but it's this is still relevant because you know these programs do change based on funding every single year. A lot of programs will maintain for multiple years, but it just kind of goes to show you that if whether you're wanting to go to like the Pacific Northwest, the Northeast, Southwest, wherever you're wanting to go, this could be a great way to escape Florida summers. I would highly recommend it. But anyways, and the nice thing about REUs, I think the last thing that I'll mention is that you can apply to as many as you would like, as many as is relevant to what you would like to do. So usually I get students that apply to maybe like 2 to 5. I think my record is I had a student that applied to 14. That might be extra, you know, but my point is you can only accept one, but it increases your chances of being selected if you want to apply to multiple. And you'll find every REU is going to, when you find it and click on the link, it is going to send you to that university's website. So say the University of South Florida, they're going to have their own process for what you need to do and how you need to apply to this opportunity. And then the University of Montana is going to have their own process. Like I said at the beginning of this presentation, they're asking you very similar questions. Who are you? Why do you want this? You know, but they may ask you for different formatting, different materials that you need to submit. So when you identify these, which we usually start working with students in the late fall on these applications, they're due anywhere from like the end of January up until mid-March. So we can identify the ones that are due soonest, start working on those, and then once you've developed those applications, it becomes a lot easier to apply to your second, your third, your fourth, or your fifth REU. And then when you're working with your faculty, if you need a letter of recommendation, let them know upfront, like, hey, I'm about to begin this application process. A, can you write me a letter? B, can you edit that letter maybe 5 or 6 times to just input a different institution name, but the content of your letter is not going to change. And you know, far more often than not, they'd be more than happy to do that. Any questions about REUs? Have y'all heard about REUs for your STEM students? Okay, so did you apply this year? Yeah. Awesome. Okay, hopefully you hear back some news soon. That I know that's coming out in the next few weeks. So, cool. Now, okay, so if you so REUs, like I said, primarily domestic research, but then in addition to Gilman, there's also other opportunities for you to take that research abroad if you would like. Arcadia Abroad, I mentioned earlier, that's a really cool website to explore. They have a lot of placements throughout Europe, and then a couple like in New Zealand, South Africa, and a few other areas. You know, but then the German government heavily invests, has and is investing in their education systems. They really want to recruit Americans to come and explore their university system, maybe for graduate school, but for right now, for undergraduate students, just get involved in research. And so you'll find Amgen is another example of this. Amgen has domestic and research opportunities in Asia, in East Asia specifically, but with I say Dobberize because I'm from the South. It's technically Day-a-Day, you know, it's a little bit classy. So however you say it is totally fine. But for me, for Dobberize, fully funded, just like the REUs over the summer. And very similar to the REUs, you can apply up to 3. And so you would write 3 individual cover letters, 1 for each lab. But if I'm a student in chemistry and I'm finding 3 different labs in chemistry, likely the variation between those letters is minimal. And so again, it makes it really easy to apply to these. And this is due in early December. And so this is due before the REU cycle really picks up. So for some students, this is kind of like the test run before you get into the throes of the REU cycle. Now, if you speak German or have some proficiency, great. Or if you just download Duolingo, awesome. But if you have none, like that's fine too. These labs operate in English, but you know, just something to consider if you would be interested in the language and culture. So let's see, yeah, it's only 1 letter of recommendation, which is again, a really great test run for the letters that you're gonna need for the REUs moving forward anyways. But then I would say their options aren't as vast as the REUs, but they still have a ton of labs available. But yeah, so anyways, the day is pretty straightforward. The hardest thing with this application for a lot of students is just navigating the website. And so I'm like joking, but also like I'm not joking. Is we start this early just to make sure that you and I can both figure out the website. I think the German approach to most things is very technical. And so, yeah, you can tell the research was developed by scientists, is what I'm saying. Questions about day before we move forward? Cool. All right, so now one of my babies is the Barry Goldwater Scholarship. This is a STEM specific award, and it's only for students in their second or third year. Or I did have a fourth year student apply to this in engineering, but they were graduating in 5. So my point is, you have to at least have 1 semester or a full year remaining in your undergraduate career to be eligible for this scholarship. But this is a little bit different from the fellowships we've been talking about previously, all of which will send you to a different lab, send you abroad, send you somewhere else. This scholarship is more of a recognition for the research and the work that you have been doing. So for those of you that have already been involved in research, great. But for those of you that are trying to do an REU over the summer, great. Like we can still talk about this. But they want to find students in STEM, yes, that are doing great research, but want to go on to earn their PhDs and want to go on to a career in research. If you're in the medical sciences, you can still be eligible for this if you are planning to pursue an MD PhD, which we have had recipients for that in the past. So this is, for example, if I'm a second year student applying to this, I would apply in the fall because we have a campus deadline. I'll talk about that in a minute. But then if I'm nominated, I can receive for both my junior and senior year, this up to $7,500 in scholarship to apply towards my books, tuition, and fees, however I'd like to use it. The goal of this scholarship is to make research more accessible, like hopefully by applying these funds to your education, maybe that alleviates some of the stress that I have of having to work off campus to afford my classes, you know what I mean? Now, if I'm a junior and I apply to this and I receive it, I would get this scholarship for my senior year. So you'd only get it for 1 year. Now, I guess one thing that I will touch on as well is it is a sliding scale for the scholarship. It is based on need. I've had students that have received this that were on full rides to Florida State that essentially received next to nothing for the scholarship. So then if you're asking, well, why do you apply? The reason is if you have aspirations to get your PhD, those applications are hyper competitive. This is a scholarship that even if you don't receive the full value for the award, if you have this on your resume, it's not going to be the reason you do or do not get in, but it's definitely a reason why that door might be ajar and people are going to be willing or even more interested in talking to you, because this is kind of like that gold stamp of approval that this student is doing excellent research and is highly qualified for graduate school. So for that student I'm specifically speaking to, she went on to enroll at Harvard. And it is either about to graduate or soon to graduate. But anyways, this application process is a little bit more intense than some of the others because you're both writing a 3-page research, not proposal, but essentially highlighting a research project that you've done, coupled with multiple short essays that unpack your background, your research experience, your goals and aspirations, and then a very brief personal statement as well. Now, some fellowships that we work with, you have to work with our office, and that is because, yes, we have our own internal process. If you just look on the website, you'll see that Goldwater is due in January. But if you email me in December, you've already missed the campus deadline. So our deadline is usually that second week of November. And the reason we have that is because we have a committee, a faculty committee of 5 members from all different majors, STEM majors at Florida State that review the applications that we get. And we can choose up to 4 students to endorse from that pool. a fifth student if there's a transfer student in the pool, or a sixth student if there's a student veteran. So technically up to 6, but usually it's around 4 candidates that we endorse. And then those candidates, we have about a month and a half to make final edits before we submit everything in January. Fulbright, like I mentioned at the beginning, we have internal processes for that and a few other fellowships. So always feel free to reach out to us so we can let you know everything that you need to provide for that application. This one does have 3 letters of recommendation. So I spoke to a sophomore this past year, great research experience, but didn't yet have the letters that they needed, but that was well, hey, keep working at this and come and talk to me next year. And this is absolutely something we can apply to during your junior year. The benefits of those REUs is, well, that can yield, if you go and you do this experience really well, that can yield a letter from outside your institution, which as an undergraduate student is also really impressive. So anyways, Goldwater is a really excellent opportunity if you're thinking PhD long-term. So like I mentioned, that's just a drop in the bucket of what we work with. We have many other fellowship opportunities that we can talk to you about, like plenty in the social sciences, plenty in STEM, plenty for international affairs, research, international development, again, whatever your interests are. But if you go to our website, you can find under the Student Fellowships tab, that's where you can go to search for different awards, based on your major, based on your year of study, based on identities that you may hold, and many other criteria. And then at the far right is the important dates tab. So that's where we post, yes, about workshops like these that we host throughout the fall and spring semester, but we also add to that throughout the fall and spring, because we'll have representatives from different fellowships that will come to campus and sometimes give us a little bit short notice, but we obviously love to work with them because we can put on very specific workshops. Like the last one we did for the Boren Scholarship, like I mentioned earlier, was a workshop with a professional from that organization entirely focused on that award. But then we also really try to stay in touch with our alumni, and so we will put on alumni panels with students that, like I said, I've been here for 10 years, so I will bring students that have many years of separation from their time at Florida State. They've completed graduate school, they're well into their career, and they can speak to how these fellowships impacted their time at Florida State and beyond. And so we just want to make sure that you have access to those students and alumni as well. It's a couple of years out of date, but the point remains the same. Our students are literally traveling everywhere, and especially now post-pandemic, a lot more opportunities have opened up over the years. And so if you no idea or goal or aspiration is too crazy or weird for us to work with you on. Like, we can help you find the right professionals or the right opportunities or fellowships that can get you to where you want to go or get you into the labs and the projects that you would like to be involved in. So feel free to contact us directly. If you email us at onf@fsu.edu, that goes to all of us. So feel free to send us your availability if you would like a one-on-one meeting. Follow us on LinkedIn, on Instagram. We'll post about these workshops as well. But that is all I have for you. So if you have questions, or if you'd like me to go back and talk about any of these awards more specifically, we can do that as well. But otherwise, thank you so much for coming in person and for joining us online. But I always love seeing your faces in person.